So, Dr. Keisha's mom
Yeah.
actually found this for us. Well, she wasn't really looking for it. She just so happened to look at this. It's called The Crisis. I had never heard of this magazine before, but it's the NAACP's
NAACP's
magazine.
magazine.
Yes. And just in case someone doesn't know what NAACP is, it's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It is one of the nation's oldest civil rights organizations out there. They don't just represent Black people anymore, but for years it was, about Black people. So this is actually their, I guess, their November issue.
I can't see.
Oh, you can't see? Can everybody else see?
I can see it.
Oh, no, I mean, I can see. I couldn't see what date it said on there.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it said it on there.
Yeah, let me
So
see.
it could have said it where your mother's information was. I cut that off.
Okay, yeah. I appreciate that.
But here's what the NAACP had to say about blockchain. Opposition to the use of blockchain identity. Therefore, be it resolved that the NAACP opposes any state or federal legislation that would require an individual to create a blockchain identity in order to receive any public services or benefits, including but not limited to education, healthcare, addiction treatment, behavioral health services, law enforcement, housing, and/or food and nutrition. Be it further resolved that the NAACP will engage in community education efforts to communicate to the public about the structure, function, benefits, and inherent risks of blockchain technologies. Now, when Dr. Keisha Waddell's mother saw this, she panicked and sent this to Dr. Keisha.
She sure did.
Who sent it to us and said, we got to talk about this.
We have to talk about this.
And in fact, we looked, definitely Dr. Keisha looked, I looked for the original article that had all of the information and can't Google it. I even went to the Crisis website and I started looking through the articles on there and it's not there. So I believe that Dr. Keisha's mom saw this in the magazine. I do believe that. I just think that they're not making it Googleable for people to see this.
Yeah. And I actually reached out to somebody about this because I as I was, searching the web, trying to find some information about this, I ran across a article that was for blockchain technology, for, just the very things this resolution was against. And she claimed to be a NAACP, probably member or something like that. So I reached out to her on LinkedIn. So not in time enough for this, this conversation, she was able to give me some feedback how she's countering that. But I think hopefully, and I really would like to know what the pushback is on, because in this area, and what type of education they're going to be sharing, because again, I don't think it's a bad thing to consider the inherent risks. I think in risk are the opportunity gaps that we can then mitigate, So, we've already seen how digital identity is definitely going to be something that blockchain technology can support. I think the way that resolution appeared to be written, it seemed like the concern was about it being kind of, a situation like the mark of the beast kind of thing, like there's no buying or selling of goods or something like that, because it's required that that you are on the blockchain or what have you. But kind of like what we've talked about already, I feel like because the enterprise applications and a lot of the work that's going on with this technology is with the enterprise, at the enterprise level, we're going to find that this is a underlying technology that is something that just is, at least on the enterprise level. So that's a private blockchain scenario for the purpose of saving money and all that kind of stuff for them. But hopefully in the education that the NAACP shares is that they recognize that the public part of it requires a tremendous amount of privacy, and they talk about the hashing and whatnot, and zero knowledge proofs to make sure that only information that is needed gets out. So again, I would really love to see the context of this resolution to really speak to the concerns.
My question would be, kind of have this conversation in a reverse engineering way. I ask people, how many of you are familiar with your internet protocol? Usually
nobody.
People stare at me like,
exactly, they just use it.
Do you know HTTP? You know, how does that work? How do you know how your email works? How does the relay work? And they just look at me, dumbfounded. I'm like, you do know how to use your email though. You use email how many times a day? And you use your phone, Android, iPhone, you use it every day. You use your computer every day. Because the technology is ubiquitous, it's not something that you see. And I think this is where we're kind of, the definition becomes like this blockchain thing, like you're holding this card and you're going around showing and swiping, that's not what it is. It truly is an infrastructure. And when we got to talk about it from that point, it's like, I'm like, yeah, you don't see the code behind your internet. You go in there, you type in your URL, you go, you kind of cuss and fuss if you don't know the Wi-Fi password. That's all you do. That's it. So all of that thing is going on behind the scenes. And this is, again, just as all those things right now, that resolution states all of those things right now are in a database somewhere. So you would have to be signed up in order to get them now. It's not as if this is like some weird place where you just show up and people say, okay. All of those things are in place now that are very much a protocol, a system of workflow that has to be adhered to, and you have to be verifiable and validated in some way. So having a blockchain to say, I'm going to oppose a blockchain, it's like, well, are you opposing a SQL database? Because that's exactly what those things are right now. So I think that's where it becomes muddied when you're using a technological term and saying we oppose this technology. When you can't say that in that general statement. It's like we oppose the internet,
right? But
you write an internet article, so you can't. It doesn't make sense. So I'm just a little concerned with the how it was formulated, and maybe, like I said, that needs to be elaborated, and maybe it wasn't for public consumption. That's why it's not Googleable. But it just doesn't. It really has no bearing. Like I said, it would be someone saying we oppose using the internet and using your phone, and we know that's not happening. So that becomes the issue. The only thing that I have with regard to how that is written is that it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, the way it's written, it seems like it's not written by somebody who knows blockchain. One of the first things that I thought. The second thought I have, I'm going to talk after Eric talks, because I do actually have a defense of the NAACP and what I think they were trying to say. But before I do that, Eric, I'll let you chime in.
Well, yeah, no, listen, I want to be fair to them. And, obviously, of course, they mention any sort of government or governmental organization or legislature. So they started there. And then, of course, they tied it together where an individual couldn't receive services unless they had a blockchain identity. My biggest concern with them is their whole approach. And their approach is they aren't looking at the fact that it could solve a lot of problems that aren't being solved currently. There are certain locales right now where, you can't have any access to any city services if you're a homeless person and you don't have an ID. You don't have access to certain medical services that the city may be providing or something like that. But, and listen, and now I'm going to say this, and I know people may go, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I don't have anything to do with that. But I believe it's Estonia or one of those Eastern Bloc countries that they are allowing people to use their iris scans.
Yeah, I've seen that.
and their information is in access and it's on the blockchain there. So that, you know, someone doesn't have to carry it. I know people could go, hey, that's not for me. I don't want to do that. And I get it. But I'm like, my main thing is, listen, instead of putting a wall up and put a gate up and saying, hey, you know what, no, this blockchain thing, it's scary. Just like Talisha was saying, like, hey, well, wait a minute. You're already, what are you talking about? It's not, you know, but they didn't approach it from a point of, well, wait a second. How can we employ this so that it actually goes and solves problems from a very human-centered approach that we aren't able to solve currently? That's just what I didn't, you know, hear or see from that. It just seemed like everyone's like, oh my gosh, blockchain is scary. Get it away from me, you know, stop it.
Yeah, any kind of change is scary.
Yeah, and that's just not the way to me to approach any kind of technology.
Yeah. So, okay, so here was my thought when I initially read it and my thought tonight. And then as you guys talked, I actually added 2 more things. The first thing I thought was, they probably are thinking about the fact that 70% of our communities don't have internet. So if we don't have internet and then we loop in this blockchain thing, then, and you tie it to public services, then will our people be adversely affected because they're poor and they don't have access to, you know, certain technologies? Now, putting the blockchain hat on, we know that's not the same thing, right? But the reason why I said that the person that I think wrote the resolution doesn't really understand the technology is because of the way they wrote the resolution. You understand what I'm saying? So I think, so that's my defense of the NAACP. I think the person who wrote it, or people who wrote it, are coming from a good place, but they're coming from a place where they don't understand the technology and they didn't ask the right people about it, you know? Because the blockchain is going to be on the federal government server. It's not like something you carry around on your iPhone, you know? So that simple explanation would hopefully have resolved some of that issue. Then they want to do education on it. My question is, if you wrote the resolution incorrectly, how are we going to educate people on it, and who are we educating on it? And that brings me to point number 2. This is something that I understand. I have not researched it myself. We're going to get a little political here, but that's okay. And this is not Democrat or Republican. This is just political. Many of us know about the Byron Allen case that's happening now, that was just litigated in the Supreme Court. It's my understanding that the original negotiation that Comcast did was with the NAACP. And part of the reason that Byron Allen and Diddy, who owns Revolt, and these other Black channels got screwed over was because the NAACP did not have the right people in the room negotiating that contract. Now, again, I didn't do my research on it, but it's something I heard in the podcast, and it wasn't Byron Allen who said it. It was some other person, like totally somebody who's not even involved in it, who said that. And I trust what they said. So if they screwed up the Byron Allen thing, I really don't want them touching the blockchain.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is a positive of the whole blockchain thing, and this is something when Eric started talking, kind of let me think about it, is the ability with blockchain identity for us to clear up some of the voting concerns, some of the voter purging concerns that we have in our communities. And I would love to have the ability to talk with whomever the people are at the NAACP, if they have any kind of power over this. I don't think they have any real power over this, but if they did, to say, hey, you know, we could turn this and flip this into ways that could help with some of the social concerns that we have. Voting is the first one I'm thinking of, You know, you could have police, mistaken identity, for example, with the police,
Yes.
right? Happens all the time. Could blockchain help that? Well, yes, here's how it could. I would take that list and I would kind of say, let's take your concerns, which are, I believe, legitimate concerns in the community, and let's get to the table with the people that are, like Talisha said, coding, you know, or setting up the business processes, and say, we've got to add these things in here as well. That's how we make the NAACP relevant with something like this. Otherwise, they're in our way, and, you know, I don't have time for that.
Fear tactics are never going to be good.
Yeah, fear mongering won't work.
The minute that you have such a staunch stance against something, like it's just like forbidden, you shut down a conversation. You know, it's like, we're going to have to talk about this, because again, it's not something that you can vote in or out. You're not going to be able, it is happening, it's going to happen. And now you have to figure out how it's going to happen and where your level of participation is going to be. So I think that's the inhibiting part, is it's written so blatant, like we are just not going to participate. And in some instances, that's what a lot of people want. They just want you to just leave them alone, and they're going to make the rules and make all that over on this side, and you're not considered, and therefore you're at their mercy.
You know what? Oh, I'm sorry.
Like I just dislike the aspect of shutting something down without having a dialogue. You're making a statement. And I think this is what I always say, that, you know, the parent statement, do as I say. This is not a do as I say. You don't know what you're talking about. I can't do that. Like, I just don't know what you're saying.
You know, and then further, you know how we talked about that bell curve for, you know, the laggards and all that kind of stuff. This is so disturbing to me, in the sense that here we are, the national, association for, for Black people. And this is what we're saying, to put us right lockstep in the laggard spot, to have that kind of perspective. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that was what was really disturbing, in light of, you know, everything we've just talked about, because to be a Luddite at this time of life, it's the 21st century. You know, you just cannot. And like you just were saying, Talisha, the way to go about the concerns that are legitimate, like I said, I don't want to be the person who's just like, you know, shiny new thing and we're just going after it kind of thing. I want us to bring all concerns to the table, and then let us look at the technology. And like we said, it's early enough to have those things mitigated from the beginning. And what's so awesome about this is that they could come up with their own blockchain that does whatever, you know, we need it to do, you know, and we already have things like that in place. So, it's going to be interesting to really get the full context of this article. And I haven't been home to see Mom to grab that full magazine, but that's my next step for sure, to see
that deserves a letter to the editor.
And oh, you know what? Well said. And hey, Black blockchain consultants.
If it was on the website, I wanted to say, it's like you find the digital master on the website, but a letter to the editor would be very necessary at this point. And I think this is where outreach is necessary, dialogue, even if it's forced. You're going to talk to us about it, because we're going to talk to you about it in a different light. And yes, concerns always. Every technology has pros and cons. We're not saying blockchain is going to be a panacea, just, you know, the internet wasn't, and it's never going to be. It is a device, it is like I said, an infrastructure. So you have to have a business element and conversations and considerations, both ethical and strategic. There's a lot that goes into all of that stuff. And if you just shut yourself off, you are relegated to just being the end consumer, and you can't complain. I would say it's like calling Comcast. They know you can't call anybody else, and so they just go, whatever. And that, we don't want to do that. You don't want to become that person who you complain and nobody cares about your complaint.
Yeah. Well, with that, we are at the 1 hour mark. I'm going to open it up for anybody else that has anything else to say. And all our participants out there, if you have something you want me to read off in the chat, please put it in. Last couple of minutes. Nobody? Okay. Well, we talked tonight about Blockchain 5.0. Great conversation there. We talked about the NAACP, another great conversation. There's just so much happening within the blockchain industry. Oh, okay. So Vanjan is asking, any mentors in Los Angeles? Eugenia is in Los Angeles. So if Vanjan, are you part of the inner circle? If so, you can connect with Eugenia in Flock. We have other people in LA as well. Okay, yes, you think, yeah, if you're able to get in the Flock, then connect with Eugenia. Ryan is asking, how can I, as a new Black blockchain consultant, use Web 5.0 in the HBCU field? Well, you want to major in something. I was about to say that. You want to pick either a use case or an industry that you really care about. And, within HBCU, you could choose, I don't know what you're majoring in, but you could choose the education administrative route, or you could decide on, I think you're a business major, Ryan, if I remember correctly. But, find a use case within it. And then one of the great things that HBCUs can do is you could start applying for grants. So I actually have a connection that is really trying hard to work on the Hill, on Capitol Hill, to get more money allocated to HBCUs for research and development, so that we can do our own R&D using government money. That's how, like, Johns Hopkins and Harvard and all of these, MIT, all these big guys, how they get all their R&D money is they get it through the government. So HBCUs are not getting their fair share, but you could be a researcher in an HBCU. There is still some money allocated to that. There's all sorts of things you can do. One of the big things I can say is just study and pick something that you want to, like, learn a lot about, and then dive deep, and then offer your services and your talents as a researcher to do white papers, case studies, skate to where the puck is going as well. You could do user experience. You could volunteer to do user experience on other people's platforms. All sorts of stuff you can do. And then network. Make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up. And connect every day with 3 to 5 blockchain professionals and say, this is what I do, this is what I'm passionate about. Do you have anything any gigs that you think that you would want me to participate in? And I would guarantee you within a month, somebody will say, oh yeah, that sounds great. This is what we're doing. So, yeah, so I was going to say my greatest hit from 2019 is pick a major. So I said I was going to bring back my greatest hits. So Ryan brought it in. Freshman and sophomore year of college, what do? You do general studies. And then junior year, you pick a major. And picking a major in blockchain could be anything from tokenization of assets, smart contracts, data management. You can choose a specific industry. You could choose a specific social justice concern and how blockchain is going to help with that. You can do international business and international transactions. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. But 2020 is the year of picking the major, because 2021, there's going to be a lot of transactions happening within blockchain. We're going to talk about it on January 27th. That's a Monday at 7 p.m. We're going to talk about what's happening, why it's happening, and how you can capitalize on it. So if you are not a part of the inner circle, that is going to be an inner circle only meeting. So it's $100 to join, and you can go to blackblockchainconsultants.com, click the membership button, and join Black Blockchain Consultants that way. Also, if you see this on YouTube later on, please like our YouTube page, subscribe to it. We're trying to get our YouTube subscriptions up. So thank you so much. And anybody else before we sign off? And welcome, Brody. I see you here as well. Welcome.
You know what? Can I just say this?
Sure.
Listen, I've been told that I have pretty good instincts, and I'm just going to say this. Okay, I believe this is not any kind of prediction, but I believe that 2020 is about to be a year in blockchain and cryptocurrency that we have never seen before. I believe that by the end of 2020, we will be going, oh my goodness. You know,
I'm going to raise you that. I'm going to say by second month, quarter two, we're going to see, because there's some insight that I have, some intel. But
there you go. See, that's
heard it first here, guys.
So it's going to change. The trajectory is definitely a very strong change is going to.
So the thing is to stick with it, you know, stay with blockchain chat, stay with us and stay close. So, because we're going to be riding the wave. And what I want is for everybody to come to me and say, because of this group, it changed my life. It changed my bank account. It changed, you know, my family's trajectory, everything. Nothing would make me happier than that. So, all right, everybody. Well, good night. And we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Take care.
right.
Bye, everybody.
See everyone. Nice.